Wednesday, I showed you a tool called NotebookLM that can turn documents into podcast-style discussions. It was interesting. It was impressive. But it left me wondering something. Could this actually solve a real business problem? Or is it just another cool AI demo? So today, I want to test a real-world scenario. Imagine you're a warehouse manager. It's Monday morning. A brand new supervisor starts their first day. They're excited. They're motivated. And they're about to be handed a mountain of information. Attendance policies. Safety procedures. Corrective action guidelines. Incident reporting requirements. Food safety expectations. Equipment inspections. Shift communication procedures. Performance management expectations. And that's before they even learn how the operation works. I've spent years in manufacturing, warehousing, and operations leadership. And one thing I've learned is this: the problem is rarely the lack of training. The problem is helping people absorb the training. Most organizations already have documentation. The attendance policy exists. The safety manual exists. The standard operating procedures exist. The challenge is getting people to engage with all that information. Let's be honest. When a new supervisor receives a 100-page binder on day one, how much of it do they actually remember? Probably not as much as we'd like. So let's see what happens when we use NotebookLM. Imagine we upload several documents. The employee handbook. The attendance policy. The corrective action process. The safety program. The supervisor expectations guide. Instead of simply reading those documents, NotebookLM allows us to interact with them. We can ask questions, generate summaries, create study guides, and most interestingly, generate podcast-style discussions. Now imagine our new supervisor is driving to work. Instead of staring at a binder, they're listening to a discussion about attendance management. They're hearing examples. They're hearing explanations. They're hearing key concepts presented conversationally. That's a completely different learning experience. And that's where I think this tool becomes interesting. Not because it replaces training, but because it supplements training. Let's look at a real example. A supervisor needs to understand attendance management. They need to know what counts as an occurrence. When is documentation required? How many occurrences trigger discipline? What happens when someone is already on a final written warning? These policies can be confusing, especially for someone who's new. NotebookLM can help break down those policies into summaries and discussions that are easier to understand. Now let's talk about safety. In many operations, safety is the #1 priority. A supervisor needs to understand near misses, incident reporting, PPE requirements, forklift safety, housekeeping expectations, lockout, TAGU procedures, emergency response plans. Again, all of that information usually exists somewhere. The challenge is helping people retain it. What if supervisors could review those topics through AI-generated discussions before a shift? What if they could ask questions about company policies and receive answers based on the actual documentation? That's where tools like NotebookLM start becoming useful. Another area I see potential is shift handoffs. Anyone who has worked in operations understands this problem. Information gets lost. One shift knows something. The next shift doesn't. A problem occurs. A note gets buried. A conversation is forgotten. Documentation exists, but communication breaks down. Imagine using NotebookLM to summarize key reports, meeting notes, or operational updates. Instead of reading multiple documents, supervisors could quickly review the important points. That's a powerful use case. Now let's talk about limitations. Because there are limitations. NotebookLM is not replacing managers. It's not replacing trainers. It's not replacing experience. And it's definitely not replacing common sense. Organizations still need leaders. Employees still need coaching. Training still requires human interaction. But I do think tools like this can help make information more accessible. And that's important. Because knowledge only creates value when people can actually use it. One thing I've learned during my AI automation journey is that the best technology doesn't replace people. It helps people perform better. That's exactly how I view NotebookLM. Not as a replacement for training, but as another tool that helps employees learn. And honestly, I think that's where many AI tools will create the most value over the next few years. Not by replacing expertise, but by helping organizations share expertise more effectively. So would I use NotebookLM for supervisor onboarding? Honestly, yes. Not as the entire training program, but as a supplement to help reinforce key concepts. And that's a pretty interesting use case. Before I wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you were onboarding a new supervisor, what information would you want them to learn first? Safety? Attendance? Leadership? Communication? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoy practical AI tools, workflow automation, business systems, operations management, and real-world business applications, consider subscribing. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'll see you in the next video.